How granular should my tasks be? Do I use epics, stories, tasks, subtasks? And how do I convince my project teams to actually do this? My name is Tom from Genius Gecko, and today I'm going to talk to you about task granularity. The video will be structured in a certain way. We're first going to be talking about why it's important, then I will move into how to do it, and then at the end I'll also explain how to handle the people's objections. Now, don't you dare skip the first part about why it's important. In this part, I will be telling you some concepts that will be absolutely crucial for the later stages of this video. So you have to listen to those, because without understanding why, you yourself will not be able to do things. And how can you even imagine to convince other people to do it if you can't explain the why to them, right? So, okay, this is why it's so important. Let's start with an example. The issue that you see over here, the task that you see over here. Of course, normally it would be surrounded by all the other tasks from the project, but just to visualize the example properly, one single task. As you can see, based on its length, it's more or less a 1 month long task. I have a marker over here, meaning today, right? So this is the today marker, which tells us that the task is currently in the future. So now let's imagine that we are working on this task and it's basically getting through time. And to simulate this, I'll simply be moving this task like that, right? So let's imagine that we moved in time a little bit and now we are over here. So just part of this task has already been worked on. And like in an ideal scenario, we will probably mark this task to be now in progress. It will change the color slightly like that, right? So now our task is in progress. Cool. We are getting somewhere. The task is in progress. We see that the work is going on. Some more time passes and we see that the task is still in progress. All right. Nothing bad is going on. Nothing to worry about. We move along the time again and we can still see that the task is in progress. Now we move along the time again and we can still see that the task is in progress. And I think you follow my point. You basically keep doing the task, keep looking at the task from the project manager perspective, for example, and all the information that you get is that the task is in progress. Now, of course, you can go and talk to the project teams and get more information out of them, but they will actually only see that the task is in progress. And of course, often in their heads, they will have a more detailed status of work that is going on. So if you have a good project team, you will probably learn a lot more about the real progress from them than you can learn from this bar. But often it's not enough. And if your project team is pretty decent and there are some problems with delivering this task successfully, you will probably learn about those problems somewhere here. Okay? And that's if your project team is good. If your project team is bad, you will probably learn about those problems somewhere over here. And that's something that you don't want to have, because unless you have a big cushion for, all the things that can go wrong in a project, you're basically screwed at this point, right? So why, or actually not why, but how splitting this larger task into smaller pieces helps us. So let me show you this. I already have this task split. So I'll simply expand and you will see, okay, this develop high efficiency power converter unit is actually a bunch of smaller tasks bundled together, right? So this is something that we will want to be looking at for now. And what does it give us? Well, it tells us that this 1 month long task is broken down into smaller elements. We have 9 of them, and we can see that the first one is in progress. The second one is in progress. The third one is actually not started. It's in a backlog status, and the fourth one is in progress, right? So if we are over here in time, meaning that we should be in the middle of the pre-last element, we can see clearly that we are severely screwed. Not only we are not in progress over here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 other tasks before that haven't been completed even. We have 3 tasks that are in progress, not completed as well, right? So, maybe somebody forgot to change the status, but maybe not. Maybe they are actually not finished. And there is definitely something wrong going on. And the chance of us of finishing this task on time is at this point very tiny. So breaking this into smaller pieces, of course, helps us with the visibility. We can see what has already been done and what's still in front of us, and what's the progress of the things that should have been done. And if they are not according to our expectations, then of course we can do something about it. So visibility, which allows us to also create predictability, because the more we visualize, the better we know what is going on and what will happen in a very near future. Therefore, it becomes more predictable. Okay. Another thing that breaking down and making tasks more granular gives us is that we are also able to spot problems faster. So again, for example, over here, we can see that this third task under the parent, iterate design based on test feedback, is not even started, despite the next one being started and despite it being actually dependent on its predecessor. So it's definitely a problem that we have to fix. We have to go and ask, okay, why isn't it started? What's the problem over here? How can I help to make this happen? What do we need to do? Are we missing a person? Are we missing a resource? Are we missing tools to be able to complete this task, right? Like, we have to dig in and find a solution for it. But thanks to the breakdown that we see over here, we have the information about it, and we have something that is prompting us to actually go and do something to fix the problem. So you're able to spot the problems faster. You're of course able to solve them faster. Therefore, you lower the project risk. And lowering the project risk is so important. The reason why we are talking even about this topic is that I was on a meeting last week working with a client from Fortune 500, a big company. We are helping them transform their planning process and delivery process from the perspective of processes and tools. And this is just, a tiny piece of it. But you can see that if Fortune 500 companies are struggling with this, then it's a problem that is not unique. And we can see this among many different clients that we work with. It's a question that comes up very often. How granular my task should be and how do I do it properly? So if you want to have better planning, if you want to have a more predictable deliveries, if you want to work faster and at the same time lower the project risk, this is one of the things you have to take a hard look at. And of course, if you would like some help, there is an email over there, and you can always contact us to ask about how we can help you in this journey. But anyway, coming back to this, one other thing that is super important over here when it comes to the why is that the people that are working on these items will also benefit from you breaking down this hierarchy for them. You or like the team leader or whoever is responsible for this. Because instead of working on a one big chunk of work and not seeing, any meaningful progress in terms of their project plan for the whole month, they get to grab the piece of work, complete it in a few days, mark it as done. So I can go over here and say, okay, this element is now completed. It turns green over here. We get a check that it's done. And we also get a sense of completion. We get a shot of dopamine, just like you get, when you're crossing things out from your to-do list. And therefore, it's like it creates this effect of being more satisfied with the work that you're doing, right? So it's absolutely crucial from the planning perspective, from the work execution perspective, but it's also beneficial for the teams that are actually working on that. So getting sense of completion, but also like being able to visualize better in terms of what's going on, for a certain individual. So I come to work and I can see, okay, today I need to focus on this. It's a small element. I feel like I can do it in a day, 2, maybe 3, and then I will be able to shift my focus on something else instead of like thinking crazily about all of the things that need to be done in terms of everything that is going on. And then you have this huge bundle of items that are constantly bombarding you with, hey, do you remember about me? Do you remember about me? Having lists like this and assigning these to people, you won't have to think about it too much. By the way, I wasn't really thinking about doing this in this video, but if on top of everything that I said so far, so like breaking things down, you will also want to have like the estimates on those tasks and assign those tasks to people. You will also be able to, for example, check out how your resources are looking like, right? So let's zoom in a little bit. Let's zoom in at that task. And then I can see, okay, these items are actually assigned to different people, to me, to Jarek, and I can see, okay, actually those people are not fully available during that time period, or maybe too much work is assigned to them. So for example, Jarek over here, he won't be able to complete all the work in this week because it's highlighted in red. Tom is actually slammed with work apparently because, or like he's partly available because all the work assigned to him is highlighted in red. So there is definitely something wrong. So this gives you more information about how you can approach this and minimize the risk of successful delivery of that stuff. And actually, let me show you one more thing, which I think will be interesting. So we are in June. Yeah, it should work. So I have a task that is unassigned over here. What will happen if I assign it to Marta? I'm just doing the planning. I'm like, okay, this task, this needs Marta. She needs to complete this task. There is no one else. She's the only person suited to deliver this. So I assign this task to Marta and wait a moment. Oh, look at that. Look what happened over here. Everything got scrambled. My plan doesn't look anything like my previous plan. Everything moved all the way to the right. Now, why did that happen? Well, it happened because Marta over here, whom I assigned to deliver this task, is actually unavailable in this time period. Maybe she's on vacation, maybe she's absent for whatever reason, but she's not available in this period of time. Therefore, this task, if this task needs Marta, it can only be completed in this week, and then everything else, you can see that it got moved all the way to the right. It actually, the borderline of the parent stopped the tasks from being moved further, but that's because of the scheduling mode I'm using over here. But what I'm getting to is that if you take a step further, instead of just breaking things into smaller pieces, you will also think about, okay, how much work is actually necessary to deliver those, who is responsible. Then you get additional layer of visibility, an additional layer that helps you do planning better in terms of your resources, in terms of the workload of those resources. So I think this is absolutely brilliant, if you ask me. All right. Anyway, so that's the end of the why. That's the end of the why. And now we want to move to how. I'll divide the how into 3 different elements. First of all, the burning question of the size. How small is too small? How big is too big? So our rule of thumb is that the work item that is at the lower level of the hierarchy should be between 1 and 5 days. This is a sizable element. This is something that you can wrap your head around and be able to completely understand what actually needs to happen. It's not too detailed, but it's detailed enough. So you can use the same rule, 1 to 5 days. If the task is within this range, it is pretty much okay. Getting lower into tasks that are smaller than 1 day, hourly tasks, not really something that we are fans of. Actually, not many tools support that very well, so that also sometimes becomes a problem. But all in all, it just gets you a little bit too close to putting too much work into breaking things down into too small pieces, and it will become hectic and hard to manage later on. Bigger size than 5, of course, you get to the area where you're not really controlling the work efficiently anymore, and that's why you want to have it smaller. So that's this one out of the way. 1 to 5 days, rule of thumb, and I think this range is pretty good. It will work for you. The second more difficult topic is what kind of hierarchy within Jira you should use to visualize those tasks. So if you look at what I have my top level item over here, the parent, which is an epic, and then I basically have tasks, right? So you can see this is an epic, and this is a task, and all of the ones below them are tasks as well. I actually have another small epic over here from another example that I did some time ago, and you can see that underneath those epics I have user stories, right? So are tasks better than user stories? Not really. They are kind of the same. They just have a different icon and a different name. But the real question is, which hierarchy should you be using? And unfortunately, I can't give you a straightforward answer to this, because it depends on so many different elements. It depends on your current Jira hierarchy. It depends on how you're structuring data in Jira. It depends very often on how your teams work with data, because very often what we see is that companies have different teams working in a different way. For example, the client that I mentioned earlier, the Fortune 500 one, they have like software teams, they have hardware teams, they have business teams, and all of them work in a different way. So all of them will probably need a different type of hierarchy, different issue types that they will be using, or work item types that they will be using. So the challenge is to figure out what will work best in different areas of the company, but also make it smart enough so that it's connectable when you want to, for example, connect those elements and create a portfolio view or a program view when you want to have meaningful reports. So lots of different variables that go into this equation, and that's why I can't give you a straightforward answer to this. Normally what happens when we help our clients get through this is, of course, during the analysis period, we dig deep into this. We have to understand everything that goes into all of the elements that I've mentioned, and then we figure out, okay, so we have these kind of presets that already exist. This is what's movable, this is what's not movable, these are the tools that we have, these are the tools that we want to introduce. Let's bundle it up together and figure out what's the best way for this to work. And this part is pretty important because you want to make it work well from the get-go, because changing this approach is actually quite demanding later on. So if you set it once and then you want to change those things around, it's time consuming and it's painful, not only in terms of, how much time you have to put into this, but also retraining the people, announcing the changes and making them work now in a different way. It's like something that we never want to do. So we always put a lot of care into figuring out what's the best approach over here so that we don't have to change it later on. So like, I'm highlighting this to make sure that you realize how important it is to actually choose the right hierarchy that you're going to be using. Okay. Now, the last item I want to address over here is how difficult it is to actually make the breakdown in terms of like physical clicks that you have to do, you have to perform inside the tool. So let me switch to a different tab, which I've also prepared beforehand, and I'll show you a few things over here. So because like you can do this in several different areas of working with Jira and the apps on top of Jira. So if you would be, for example, using the timeline feature, you can do it very easily just by hitting this plus button on the level of the epic. You hit this, you get to create a child issue. You can change the type. You can see that I have a user story over here. I can switch it to a task, to a bug. You just put in the name and bam, it's created, right? Super quick, super fast. Bam, 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 bam. You can create the whole list of them. Timeline is actually not that great, so there is a high chance that you will be using something else for managing the project and creating project management kind of views. But if you would be using timelines, if you are a small company and timeline is enough for you, then this is one of the ways of doing it. If you're working with the backlog, another very cool way that you can do it is that you can enable the epic panel over here, and then if you have the epics, you can of course create the epic over here, but then on the level of the epic, you can also, like if you expand it, you can also create work items underneath the epic. And then you get this standard Jira issue create window. What I like to do is I hit the checkbox to create another. So that means that if I create this one, a new window will pop up, a new window will pop up, and I can quickly get through like 10, 20 items that I want to create. You pick the right issue type over here, or the work item work type. You provide the name, you can see that it's immediately connected to a proper epic over here, and you just hit create, put another name, create, put another name, create. Of course, you can fill in some additional information over here. So if you want to provide the estimate or start and end dates for whatever reason over here, you of course are able to do this as well. So that's pretty convenient too. Another item that I will show you, I think the last one is the list. So if you're a list type of person, you can work in this kind of view. It's pretty convenient as well. And if I scroll to my epics over here, you can see that I have a plus over here to create child work item under the epic, and then you're already familiar with this kind of an entry. Again, you can choose the user issue type over here, or the work type, and then you just provide the name. If you have the epic itself opened in a separate window, like this, for example, you can of course add the children to the epic through this. So again, the same kind of a deal. So as you can see, there are several different places where you can do this very conveniently, very fast. The way I've prepared what we have over here is I actually did it through BigPicture, which is the app that is visible over here. And the way I did this is like I created the epic, I highlight the epic, I go to here, create subtask, create the Jira issue as a subtask, and then again remember to check the create another checkbox over here, and then you simply put in the name, connect it to a proper parent, proper epic, and hit create and repeat and repeat and repeat and iterate, right, until you get the whole list. So to create all of these 9 children with the estimates, with assigning these to people, an asterisk, I knew what I want to create, so I had the names somewhere on the side, so I just had to copy and paste them over here. This is like 60 to 90 seconds of work. Not much, right? But of course, what helps is knowing how to do it and being familiar with the environment and with the tools. And that's why, like, if your people are afraid of this, or if you are afraid that your people will struggle with this, take care of the training. Train the people, show them how to do it conveniently, show them different possibilities, because they probably work with those tools in different ways, and they will be able to find something that suits their needs. I'm pretty sure about that. All right, and that's actually taking us very nicely to the last part of this video, so objections. Why would people object to breaking things down into smaller pieces? Well, this is actually pretty obvious, because we bump into this all of the time. And this was actually, again, one of the things that made me think about recording this video, because the interesting discussion that we had last week with the client was with one of the team leaders who was like, oh, you know, but we are slammed with work, we have so much going on, and then on top of this, now you're telling us to spend time on breaking things down into smaller pieces, and we are like, where do I find time even for this? I don't even know how to do it. I tried to do it myself, I failed. I tried to reach out to someone who was not available. I couldn't get the help last week. A few days passed and I'm still nowhere. Like, people love to complain about things. Some people, okay, some people, not everybody. Some people love to complain about things. And this guy was exactly like this. So, 2 things I want to address over here. The typical objections that we hear. First of all, from the perspective of project managers usually, or people that manage those kind of resources and projects or initiatives, they are afraid that they are getting too close to the micromanagement, which is frowned upon. So what I want to say over here is that this is absolutely not micromanaging. It's actually the opposite. You're helping the teams be more self-sufficient with the work that they are doing, so that me, for example, as a person that is supposed to be controlling this work, I can step back and actually look at the feedback that I'm getting from the tool and only react in places where I see that there is something wrong. And I get this feedback quickly and very often, so that I'm not missing on important bits because they happened like 2 weeks ago. I get this feedback instantly because the tasks are smaller, right? So it's absolutely not micromanagement. It's the opposite of micromanagement. You're handing the tools and the responsibilities to the teams and allowing them to be more effective and more self-sufficient in terms of their planning. Okay, so don't think about micromanagement as one of the things that you should be afraid of. Second thing is what I mentioned earlier. So too much work. It will, take me too much time to do this. So first of all, as I said, actually, let's break it down into two things. So, because the work that you have to put into this is connected with two areas. The first area is to figure out what actually needs to happen, right? So you kind of have this month-long item or whatever, and now you have to figure out, okay, what actually needs to happen within this 1 month is this, that, and that, and that, and you have those 9 items that I have over here, right? So you have to figure it out anyway. Whether you put it into the tool or not, you should have it figured out, because without this, you are not able to distribute the work effectively. You're not thinking about all the different dependencies that are connected with all the work that needs to happen. You're not thinking about who will be doing this kind of work and whether this person is well suited to do this work, available to do this work, and so on. So if you're not thinking about it, you are already on a very bad side of project management. If you are thinking about it, if you are making those kind of lists, be it in your head or in Excel or anywhere else, then there is no additional work in this compartment anyway. And then the additional work is just to enter this data into the tool that you're using, right? So in my case, it's Jira / BigPicture. You could be using something else. And as I demonstrated, entering this data into the tool is just, I'm tempted to say seconds, but of course it depends on how many items you want to put inside, but it's like minutes, okay? It's probably not even hours. Unless you want to go deeper and apart from doing the breakdown, do the estimates, assign it to people, create the dependencies, which I would strongly encourage you to do. But if you're not doing that, it's minutes, right? And you can't hope to get more visibility, more predictability, to spot the problems earlier, to have lower risk, to have people with higher satisfaction of work and better sense of completion without putting some additional work into this, right? It's the reason we are not driving the cars made of the cardboards, but we're actually designing and building cars that require more work, more effort, more planning, and more time spent on building the product itself, so that later on we can take this damn car and it will drive us from one location to another safely and predictably. Okay? And like, this is why it's important. And this is why we go in and help people build those cars effectively, because again, like, of course you can create a complicated process where you are going to build a Ferrari, but of course there's always room for optimization. So it's worth looking at everything that is going on in there, so that even though your aim is to build Ferrari, maybe instead of spending 1 year doing this, you can do it in 3 months. And that's where we step in. We help companies look at their processes, connect those processes with the tools, because we are in a very unique position to actually have the expertise in both of these areas. So then we make sure that your processes and your tools are nicely interconnected and work perfectly together. If you want to learn more about how we can help you achieve brilliant results in these areas, then reach out to us. You will find the email in the video. You will find it in the description of this video as well. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about how we can be of service. And I can promise you that this chat will definitely bring value to you. Even if you won't be using our services in the future, I will make sure to give you probably a different perspective of how things should work or on how things may work. And this is always tremendously beneficial, and I'll always do my best to deliver as high value as possible during those calls, and people never leave those calls disappointed. So if you're up to the task, reach out and let's have a chat. And with this, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, give it a like down below. If you didn't like it, give it a dislike. Also, let me know in a comment if this was helpful, because if it was, you know, we like to get some sense of accomplishment as well. So we are happy to hear from you as people who watch our videos, whether this was a good thing to talk about or more or not. And if you have more questions regarding this topic or similar topics, let me also know in the comments, because those questions are also important to us, and we want to deliver the kind of content that you are looking for and you want to consume. So please share those in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be seeing you in the next video.